Last week I did a video where I tied up a March brown wet fly that was an English version. Well, this week this is the March brown that is an American version. This also is in Ray Bergman's book on trout. And I wanted to do this primarily because I wanted to show the difference between the two. This is a very simple, straightforward pattern, no tail, gold rib, brown body, and brown hackle, as well as turkey for the wing. I tied this in a larger size. This is a size 4 hook because I'm going to be swinging this for some smallmouth this spring and possibly even in the summer. But I just wanted to see how it would do. So that is the March Brown American version of Ray Bergman's Trout. And I'll get started tying. Start the March Brown by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 4. I'm going to be swinging these for some of the smallmouth earlier this spring, or even some panfish, just to see how they react to it. I'm going to debarb the hook. The body on this is a brown rayon. Don't want to darken that up, so I'm going to start with a Danville 6/0 in white. I've already waxed this, so I'm going to attach my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, and I'm going to run it down the hook shank. The thing about this fly is there's no tail on it, so I can actually bring my thread all the way down here at the end of the hook shank to put in my tip. Tip is gold tinsel. I'm using a Danville size 14 silver and gold Mylar tinsel. The tip and the rib are both the same. So the nice thing with this, when you have these flies that don't have a tail in them, you can put your tip in and then running my thread down the bend of the hook to just past the barb. This is where the tip's going to end, basically, and I bring my thread back up to just between the point and the barb, and now I'll put in the body. That way I can apply the tip and the rib all at the same time. Body is a brown floss. I'm using a Danville 4-strand rayon in brown. I'm going to use all 4 strands on this because this is a large hook. I'm going to attach this to the hook shank, drawing that back a little bit so that the ends are inside the body space, and then I'll start wrapping forward. I'm going to put a little wax on my thread just to help grip that a little bit more. I want to wrap this as best I can in nice touching turns. You could flatten the wax out if you want, but I find it's not really that necessary, especially for a fishing fly. And then I'll stop about an eye length behind the eye of the hook. Now I'll apply the floss body. I'll apply the tip and the rib at the same time. Turning the hook over, I'll take my tinsel. I'll start wrapping this in pretty much edge to edge wraps. If you want, you can overlap just a little bit. I'm going to get 4, maybe 5 wraps as I come right up and cover up all the thread wraps behind the body. Once I do that, I'm going to open this up in a spiral, and I'll put in my 5 evenly spaced wraps for the ribbing on the body. To get this right, that 6th wrap comes right up beside the head space and gets tied in. Bring my thread forward just a little bit, checking that I don't have any exposed thread wraps in the back here. I'm going to now switch over to a Danville 6/0 in black to finish out the fly. Getting some wax on my thread. Start my thread right behind the eye. I'm going to advance down about halfway down the head space and trim off the 2, the white as well as the tag of black. The reason I stop halfway, you'll notice when I cut that, no matter how close I get, I'm still going to end up with just a little bit of tag right there from the white and the black. Well, now as I come all the way back to the back of the head space here to tie in the wing, that will all get covered up. So it all looks nice and neat. The wing on the March Brown American calls for a brown turkey. I'm actually using a secondary turkey flight feather here. It's not quite brown, but it has some modeling and it's a dark color. The brown turkey tail that I have is not very good. The tips are all really kind of busted up on it. I'm looking for some better turkey tail, but that's why I am going to use this. What I want to do is cut a left and a right slip. I want to make certain I have the tips even on that, just like this. And then I want to make certain I have the width the same. As it turns out with this one, the slip that is on your side, but now my side, is just about 1 barb too wide. Take my bodkin in, peel that 1 barb out. Double check it. I still have 1. No, that's good enough. My wing is going to be, because there's no tail, if there were a tail here, about halfway down. So, maybe a quarter of the shank, half the shank past the bend of the hook. I want to be careful when I'm tying this in that I'm not moving the back of the head further down as I'm tying in the wing. You can quickly get to the point where you make the heads a little too big on this. Now I got 1 barb that's decided to split out on me, but we can zip that back up, I think. Or maybe not. If that's the case, then go ahead and cull that out. That happens sometimes. I'm going to cut away the excess. Then I'm going to clean up this area around the head because I have a hackle that I'm going to palmer on here. It's the brown hen hackle. But I want to use the resulting head to kind of push those barbs in a rearward direction. For the hackle, I'm using this kind of a brown mottled hen. I like the coloring on this. It's not too dark, but if I take this feather here that I've got and I start by tying it down here, when I wrap it in, I'll get some of these dark markings also in the collar. And I don't need but 3 turns of this. I'm not really wanting to fill this up. So somewhere getting maybe about an inch of that, the last bit of that rachis right there. I'll trim away the rest of the feather so I have a little triangular anchor to tie in. I'll secure that down with some wraps. Grab my hackle pliers, hammer this in. As you can see, I'm only going to be getting 2, maybe 3 wraps in here. Yeah, that's good. If I took more of the feather and did more of the feather, it'd be almost too much in terms of the hackle on this. You want to keep this kind of not sparse, but just not too full. Sweeping all that back, I'll work now from behind the eye of the hook rearward to shape the head. And you'll notice that when I do that, it's also building up the head over those hackle barbs, and they're all forced in a rearward direction. Double check I got everything covered. Generally this you can pop right off. I will now flatten my thread. Put in about an 8 or 9 turn whip finish. Put in a bigger whip finish mostly because it makes it more secure, but with that thread flattened, it will also fill in some of the grooves and it just smooths off the head a little bit more. When you're making the head of these wet flies, keep in mind that you're going to be putting in those wraps to actually do the whip finish and finish off the head. So don't make these too big and then add those final wraps. You want to make it a little small. You got things covered up, and then use those final wraps just to smooth it over and get the finishing touches in. Some head cement on both sides. I'll come back with some black lacquer in a minute, a couple of coats, and that will finish off our March Brown American. Now, the original recipe, I think, in Ray Bergman's book called for, like I said, brown turkey. And also, I think it's a furnace hackle. We don't have a furnace hen, so that's why I'm using this. I think it will probably work just as well. Spring is getting here soon. March is going to be here very soon, as well as then April. So I'm looking forward to getting out on the water with these and giving them a try. So that is the March Brown American version, and thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.